Hi friends, Tracy here from the Sewing Channel. I thrifted 7 flannel shirts and turned them into one awesome quilt for my dear husband. It's a Christmas gift though, so shh. This is the new free motion quilting necklace. Oh yeah, you've seen it here first. More to come later on in this video. So much in today's video. I share with you stuff that I've never shared with you before when it comes to quilting with Minky. Enough talking already. I have to free motion this quilt so I can meet you at the end for the final reveal. When I started processing my flannel shirts and cutting them up, I neglected to put some interfacing stabilization on the back of only some of the shirts. Now half of the shirts, they had enough stabilization where it was really thick flannel and it did not shift at all. But there were a couple that did shift, and honestly, I thought I was going to be able to get away without doing it, but no, I ended up having to fix a lot of what I did. Make sure that you stabilize your flannel if it's shifty, and especially if it's shirts and things like that. Let me show you though how I did fix some of what I did. This one does look a little shifty on some of the pieces, and it is what it is. It's fine. I'm not going to worry about that. But what I did do from this point on after I made my block was to add the stabilization on the back with some of that stretchable interfacing, and that's going to help moving forward. So if you do mess up and you don't do it right off the bat, you can go ahead and do your blocks like that. The special thing about this quilt is that it's for my husband. I'm tailor making this quilt just for him. Whoever you're making your quilt for, you don't have to use the encouraging words that I did. Now, if you want to make a quilt like this, but you want to incorporate the person that you're making it for, what they love, no worries, you can totally do that. I mean, my husband just so happens to love the spiritually encouraging words of the Bible. And I know that, and I know that he's going to just be in love with this quilt once he receives it at Christmas. So say the person that you're making it for likes tractors, for instance. You can put tractors as the focal point in the center of these blocks instead of the words like I'm doing. Or you can find fabric that has affirmations on the fabric instead of Bible verses and add that for the focal point. What if your husband is into Harley Davidsons or rock and roll or whatever the case? Or if you're making it for someone who's more on the feminine side, you could totally switch things up and make this a more feminine quilt. But friends, honestly, I make a ton of feminine quilts. I never make anything for the masculine side, so that's what today's video is all about. Now, I purchased my words on fabric at Walmart. They happen to have those there. Like for instance, this one says, having someone to love is family, having a place to go is home, and having both is a blessing. I mean, who doesn't want to read that on their quilt, right? Now you can see here, I still have some that need to be processed behind me here on my chair. And I'll get to that eventually, but I had to get this video started. So I'm going to take this little block and it's going to be my focal point. The first thing I'm going to do is grab my little bucket of strips. You should have a lot of strips from the shirts if you cut from shirts. You can see here this one is not stabilized. This one and this red one did not need stabilized at all. They were nice and thick and they really kept their shape. So you can pick and choose what you want to stabilize. But the first thing I'm going to do is lay this down to see if it matches along the one edge of this piece of fabric. So I'm going to lift this right sides together and I'm going to work clockwise on each one of these. And flannels, you got to make sure that you got right sides because they can be a little tricky, but there is a right side and a wrong side to flannel. I'm going to do my 1/4 inch. Now, when you go to press this, you can press it any way you want, but I tend to press whichever way my seam wants to go. That's the easiest. Or sometimes it may be a little bulky and you may need to press open on that seam. It just, you know, it all depends. After I add a piece of flannel onto the focal fabric, I'm then going to trim it up after I press it. And I'm going to do that every single time. Now that sounds a little overkill, right? But it's really not. You're going to line the seam up that you just sewed with a line on your ruler. And then you're going to come in and trim those sides up. So you know you just cut that over here, so you're going to line that up. And then I even go and cut and trim off this side. Even though I cut it once when I initially processed it, because when I pressed it, since I did not stabilize this one for sure, I'm going to go ahead and, you know, just even things up. So there we have that bottom piece on. So next I'm going to go over here. Usually though, I do start on the right hand side and work clockwise, but I started on the bottom, you know, it's whatever. Do whatever you want, really. Then you're going to go and find a piece that fits this length right here. I'm going to lay this right sides together, and I'm going to follow this edge closely and make sure that I have enough there. You can pin if you like. And then I'm going to just trim off. Right now I'm going to follow along this right here, this piece along the edge. I'm going to butt my scissors up against that. And then I'm just going to just trim this excess off. You can either do it now or after you sew it. It's up to you. And save this because we're going to attach this probably somewhere else. And if you look right here, you can tell that this seam totally wants to be pressed this way. I mean, I'm not going to fight with this seam. I'm just going to do what it wants because that's going to make my life a lot easier. Right after you attach it, you're going to go in and trim it. And I'm going to line up here on this seam, and I'm also looking at this seam too because I don't want to be off, you know, too much in one spot and not enough in the other, and you know. So now I'll just flip it over here and I will trim this side. And I will look over here. Even though this one is stabilized, I'm still going to look and trim because it looks like it could be a little bit off, and it is. So I'll just measure up the best I can everywhere else. Looks good, and then I will just trim this little sliver off right here. And you can see there I didn't have to trim off much, but you know, you still have to trim. Okay, now we're going to grab another piece. Oh, let's see. Let's grab this one maybe. You can see here the interfacing didn't go all the way over, but that's okay. I mean, you know, little side pieces like that isn't going to bother it too much, you know, but you don't want to make a habit of that and do it on big pieces. If you're going to stabilize it. But that piece just happened to be what I had left there. So I lined it up right sides together. Trim that 1/4 inch. And when I open that up, I can tell it wants to go that way. You can tell I've been dealing with flannel because I have pieces of flannel everywhere. Oh my goodness. Yeah, flannel kind of, you know, leaves a track. That piece is on. So let's trim this piece. I know, friends, it seems like overkill. I know. But you got to do it though if you want things to be straight. I don't know. Let's go with one of these greens right here. That green, I love that. It has little houndstooth pattern on it. It's so cute. And it was so soft too. When I saw it in the thrift store, I was like, oh yeah, I like this one. But it needs stabilized, so it was one that needed it. You can see there, see how it wants to, you know, head that way. We're gonna go that way with it. I choose my battles in the sewing room. And there is our block. Now I can keep going around and around if I wanted to, but I don't want to because I have a lot of the focal fabrics right here, the centers, that are going to be in this quilt. So I won't probably have that much to go around these, but I want to get them all up on my design wall first, and then we'll see how we're going to fill everything in. Okay, so hear me out, friends. This is what I have so far. And I was thinking, since it's, you know, a lot of words on here, and I think I have like, you know, another 5 or 6 more to go of these blocks, I was thinking, what if I broke it up by, say, taking this one here and placing it vertical instead of horizontal. Now I know you're gonna have to read it that way, but you know, just to change things up a bit. I don't know, maybe even take this one and place it that way. Maybe not put any upside down, I don't think, but you know, what do y'all think? I don't know. I may put it like this and then sleep on it and then see what I think after. I don't know. Just the little ones maybe, just to give it a little bit of, you know, flavor. I don't know. Maybe, oh, let's see. The big ones probably not, but the little ones can totally be, you know, shifted a little bit just to give it, I don't know. I kind of like it. What do you think? Maybe if I switch these two, just so that I don't have like one right on top of each other that's doing that exact thing, you know? Maybe run this way. I don't know. I'm probably going to have to think about that, but I'm kind of liking it. I don't know. So this is roughly how I want them all to land, I think, on the quilt top. What I would like to do on this quilt is do 3 rows, 1, 2, and 3, and then connect them at different areas within the rows, so that way it doesn't look like there's, you know, sashing and such. So I don't want that type of a look. Let me get this set up so I can show you exactly what I'm talking about. So let me share with you how I'm going to fill in these gaps. I've designated this right here as my stopping point for my first top row, somewhere in there. I've positioned these sort of, you know, how I want to see them. And I've also put my split right here. But you'll notice when I do my other rows that I will make my split maybe over here or over here. And that's where I will connect those 2 pieces together. Once I connect each of those 3 rows together in the different spots, you won't really be able to see a certain stopping point where I connected. You'll only see possibly a strip in here where I connect the first and the second row and then the second and the third row. But you won't be able to tell really, because I'm going to mishmash these pieces together and hopefully you won't be able to tell. But here's how I'm going to fill this all in. So I'm going to look at this right here as one big block, okay? So what I'll do is pop these pieces. I just grabbed some random pieces here. So let me see what I want here. So if I put this one right here, and I'm just setting them up, I'm not sewing them right yet. I want to make sure that they all fit first. And say this one here. See if that fits on there. Then that one will go there. Maybe, no, I don't want that. So if I want that to connect on the top there, let me find a piece that'll fit right there. So if I stick this one here, and even though those are the same, that's fine. I'm not going to worry about it. I will connect, say, this one to here, and that will fill that gap in for these pieces. Now I need to find a piece here to connect onto there. Now I will have to cut this piece, but we'll just put it up there for right now. And those 2 will be close to each other, but I'm going to come across that, I'm sure. So I'll need another piece right here that will connect that. Actually, I think I'm going to put this one here. So this one I will have to cut, I'll have to cut that one in half probably to get right there. So if I connect that to there, so then at this point, so that will end up, you know, right along that edge there. But so these will go like, well, I'm going to put a piece right in there, I think, too. So I'm going to need to find a piece right here that will go all as far as this right here, because that's the bottom of the block. Once I find that piece, then I'll have to find another strip piece that will go in here. Now you can sew these together and, you know, make that one long strip. You can totally do that. Then we're going to need up here as well. It's hard because I really don't have that many different pieces, you know. So if I put that one there, like so. I will have to shorten this one if I put it here, like that. So I'll have to connect it to this block. So if I want this to be the end, say move this over just a little bit, and that'll be, this will be the edge of this particular, you know, block. So then I need a top and a bottom piece that matches this width, but that goes as far as this. So, you know, a piece there, and then a piece, whoops, and then a piece to cover this gap. And then I will put a piece right there, right? And then possibly a big chunk all the way across there. And hopefully that works. Let me sew that up and we'll take a look at this madness, okay? So this is what I have so far in this area right here. Hopefully you can see. I had to add in a few more pieces, and I've got this big enough to match this and this. So these are 1, 2, 3 pieces here. This long piece I sewed all together. I don't think I'll need any more here because once this gets sewn and this gets sewn and I add that, I can just trim. And then I just need to add the side to this piece and this side over here. So once I get this piece and this piece sewn onto here, then I'll be able to sew this onto here. Then these will be all sewn. Then I can sew this panel to this panel and this panel to this panel. Now I don't want to go in with one big chunk here. I don't think. I don't know. Because that's going to match that over there, I'm not going to want to do that unless, of course, I put, well, I know it seems like I got a lot of brown here, but I don't know. I could do that. I could do that one on this side. I don't know. I will figure that out. This video is going to be chopped up a little bit. You'll probably see me in different outfits. This is leading up to Thanksgiving and I'm trying to film when I can. So yeah. So hopefully the next time I turn my camera on, I will have this section all sewn up. There's no telling though. So this is what I have so far. I'm gonna pop a picture in here of that top left-hand corner, what it looked like from just the original blocks that I had made with those 4 pieces around it. And then you can kind of see here in this picture how when you add in all of those filler pieces, how that just, you know, makes the whole quilt. So I just wanted to give you a real good visual there of, you know, how that all works. So what I do have here is 3 chunks of rows, so to speak. So there's this chunk and this chunk and then the bottom chunk there. And I made sure to make big enough pieces here so that you're not going to be able to see where I connected at, hopefully in the end. But these 2 big chunks will connect here in this area. And then when I come over here, this second chunk here in the center is going to connect over here. So they're not going to be right on top of each other. I don't want that center seam to be really noticeable. So that's important if you're trying to, you know, make it look all over Scrappy. I don't want anyone to see where I connected at, although if you're really in tune to quilting and how it all works, you probably will be able to see it, but you know, my husband won't be able to, so yeah, we're good. And in the bottom one here, I have the split over here. And then I will connect them, you know, in rows. I decided that it was going to be just a little shy in length. I did go a little wider, I think like 74 or something, you know, in width. I want my husband to really be embraced by this quilt all the way around. So I want to make sure it was wide enough. And I definitely want to make sure that it's long enough. So I had this flannel right here leftover from my Quilt As You Go project. It's a little bit lighter than what I would have chose for a border, but you know, it is what it is. It's what I have. Now I could take and use the leftover pieces that I have of the flannel shirts and make a scrappy border, but I decided, you know, on one solid printed border. So I'm thinking this right here on the top and then on the bottom, like a 5-inch border. So that's what I decided. So I'll go ahead and attach the borders on, get this all together, and then we're going to do something really special. We are going to back this with minky, but it's going to be a little different than how I backed my last minky quilt. So stay with me. Now, in order to fit the entire minky on the back of this quilt, I did have to marry 2 pieces together. The one thing you have to remember about minky is there is a nap to it. When marrying 2 pieces together, you want to make sure that you are connecting them so the nap on both pieces go in the same direction. And you can usually figure this out just by petting the fabric. The key here is just not to get them opposite. Make sure that they're all petting in the same direction. One trick I use when pairing up 2 separate minkies together is making sure that I come in quite a bit from that selvage. That will help with any puckering because that selvage area is kind of wavy. It's not right. So you need to come in quite a bit, like 1.5 inches or so. I'm using the edge of my throat plate there on my sewing machine to make sure that I get the same consistency all the way down. It is important to note that sometimes I do use an interfacing down the seams of minky when I'm marrying them together, but this one didn't have anything that I had to match up. It was one solid color, so I didn't have to do that. And look at what a nice seam this technique gave just by coming in from that selvage area. Now that both pieces are married together, I can now trim that selvage area off. And I'm going to leave about a 1/2 inch seam allowance within there, and you'll see why here in a second. But all I'm doing is just taking a pair of scissors and just eyeballing this as I go. Here is the same interfacing that I'm cutting up that I used earlier in the tutorial where I stabilized my flannel. This is going to help in a huge way down that seam on the minky. I'm cutting it approximately 4 inch in width or so, and that way it will cover that entire seam on the inside of this quilt. So I'm laying it right on top of the seam. I'm spritzing it with some water, and then I'm going to lay down that cotton cloth, and I'm going to spray the cotton cloth because those are the directions within the interfacing. And I'm just going to steady my iron over it with, you know, a pad underneath. I do have a wool mat underneath here, and just press this down onto that inside seam. Now it's important to note though that you do not want to put your hot iron directly onto your minky or that seam without any of that interfacing and that cotton cloth over top, because you can burn your minky. But look at how nice that is on the back, or on the front, back, whatever, where the seam will be seen. Looks really good. And this technique is probably new to you because I don't think I've ever showed you this particular technique. But let me tell you, it totally works, especially if you don't have a pattern that you're trying to match up and whatnot. It's just a really good technique to get in the habit of. It truly does make a nice finish on the outside rather than putting top stitching like I would normally do on Minky. So since I'm not using any like traditional batting inside this quilt, I decided on using up some of the flannel that I had. So I did have to marry a couple pieces together, and yeah, they don't match, but you know what? You're not going to see them because they're going to be inside the quilt. So how I did that was I just lay flat on top of flat. So I took the salvage areas you can see there, and I just laid them one on top of another and put a seam connecting them right down the center. That way I keep the bulk out of any of this quilt as it's, you know, inside the quilt, because nobody wants to fill a bulky seam, you know, inside their quilt next to them. So, and you can see here, it makes a very, very nice flat finish, exactly what I was going for. Now on to the Minky binding. So this is how I made it. All I did was just, you know, take my pencil and mark off 1 3/4 inches, and that's what I was going to cut in strips for this quilt. Now the reason why I'm marking it and not really using my rotary cutter is because I just recently purchased a new mat, and I don't want the fuzz in my new mat so soon. I mean, at least, you know, let me wait at least, you know, a couple months first before I go and, you know, ball it up with fur, right? I guess I should tell you, if you don't know what I'm talking about, is that when you use your rotary cutter with the furry fabric, when you go to cut, you're kind of pushing, well, you're not kind of, you are pushing that fur and fuzz down into the creases of your mat, and that's what I'm trying not to do here. So that's why I'm using my scissors. This is how I sew the strips together. I make sure first that my naps are all going in the right direction. You don't want one going opposite, trust me. You want them all to pet in the same direction. In order to keep the bulk out of this Minky binding, I'm just going to overlap the two pieces, just kind of like I did when I did the flannel pieces together. You see, Minky does not fray at all, and so this makes things really nice when sewing up a technique like this. So I did 1 stitch across, and then I'm going to go in again. So I'm going to double top stitch, so to speak, and this will hold these together nicely. And I kind of went really toward the edge of where that Minky ended, so I didn't have to trim any off, and this will make for a nice flat binding around this quilt when we go to attach it. There'll be no heavy bulk within it. Now I know not everyone is going to have the dexterity to do this on the floor, but I sort of had to do it on the floor because this quilt was major big. I normally would use pool noodles, and I do have a video on how to use pool noodles up on a table to sandwich your quilt, which is priceless. You need to watch that so you know how to do normal size quilts. But for this one, the floor it was for me. So you can see the first thing that I did differently was I laid my quilt top face down onto the floor. And I made sure to spread it out really, really good, almost stretching it with my hands to make sure that it was at total capacity of stretch. When I went to lay down my flannel piece next for the batting, I first rolled it up. So I laid it onto my quilt first, so you didn't see that part, sorry about that. I rolled it all out onto my quilt, or put it out there, and then I rolled it up just like I would if I was doing it on a pool noodle, and then laid it down and kind of did the same steps that I would have if I was using a pool noodle, which is to roll it close to the end, spray the edge, get that edge piece down, and then start rolling it out. And that's what you see me doing here, is spraying and spreading and rolling it out, just as if it was, you know, a pool noodle, which it's not. And that's the way I did this part anyways. The reason why I laid the quilt top face down, which is not normally how you would sandwich a quilt, is because I had those shifty pieces, and I wanted to make sure that that was laid down first and spread out with my hands. So that was my logic reasoning behind that one. Oh no, it's not over, Tracy. You better get up. I mean, you really do want to collapse after trying to sandwich all this together. But anyways, so I ended up laying down the minky next with the wrong side down and the right side up. I laid it all out and then I rolled it up just like I would as if it was on a pool noodle. And then I started that whole process all over again by spraying and spreading, unrolling, spraying and spreading and unrolling. But I do want you to remember that normally you would be laying that minky down, right side down, wrong side up, then laying your flannel down and then your quilt top. But like I said, that fabric was too shifty for me to wait until the end to kind of spread that on. I wanted to make sure that that was the base. My quilt top was the base of how things were going to lay. So I don't know if my reasoning was correct. It turned out pretty good. So I'm thinking I did the right thing there, because I think it would have spread too much if I laid the quilt top at the top and put that on last and sprayed and spread. I don't know. Let me know what you all think in the comments. You know, you quilters who've been doing this for many, many years. Let me know what you think, if that logic works out or if it doesn't. I don't know. Needless to say, your girl Tracy was so happy when this quilt sandwich was done and ready to be free motion quilted, because, or honestly, I think I was ready for a nap after this. For those of you that don't know my setup for free motion quilting, I just wanted to throw this little clip in here real quick. See these right here? This is just some twill tape connected to that wood piece up there, or I could connect it to the non-damage 3M strip hook up there. And I have this binder clip here to where I just clip my quilt top to. This is going to help with any drag within this quilt so that I can freely move it without having to, you know, readjust all the bulk that's over here just laying, you know, dead, so to speak, on my table. So that is lifted up in the air over here. And then I also have this twill tape connected to this binder clip hooked up to the wall up there with another non-damage, you know, sticky hook, one of those things. And that helps keep this up over here. Hopefully you can see this is my big, large Juki table insert that for free motion quilting that goes with my Juki. This is ordered separately and you can get that on Juki Junkies. Check my information below. And if you use my link for Juki Junkies, since I'm an affiliate, you totally help out the sewing channel at no extra cost to you. And then you just turn your sewing machine on its side. And I do have a special free motion quilting foot that goes with my Juki that is for side free motion quilting. Now you can use a regular free motion quilting foot in, you know, when you turn it on its side, but they do make this one that actually goes on the side, and that's the one I'm going to use today. One of the number one questions I get asked in free motion quilting is, where do I start on this big quilt when I want to free motion quilt it? Well, for this one specifically, I'm going to pay attention to that. I want to start in the center and go to a side. Then I want to go back to that center and go to the other side of the quilt. So you have the top, bottom, left side, right side. I'm going right in the middle and going to the right and then going to the left of this quilt. And I'm going to take a pretty big area, the biggest that I can take anyways, probably, you know, about that much, and go to the sides of this quilt. And then I'll work from the center going up to one of the corners, another corner, and then the last corner. So being 4 corners on a quilt. So that is my method of madness when it comes to free motion quilting big quilt. One of the brand new things that I'm going to share with you today is this right here. I've used this so many times, but I haven't yet put it on video because I wasn't sure if it was foolproof or not. Well, now that I've quilted a ton of my quilts with using this little thing that I made up, I really do find it useful when I have bigger quilts that I'm quilting, like this one right here. All this is 2 binder clips right here connected to a, I don't know what that is, 1/2 inch elastic. That's all it is. You can use really any elastic. It just has to be able to give a little bit. You put this around your neck like so, and you're going to clip this on some of your quilt here and some of your quilt here. This right here, little contraption, works amazing, let me tell you. Because when you're quilting on your home machine, undoubtedly this part right here, even though I have these pinned up on both sides, this front part always gets tucked under here and it pulls, which is that drag that I spoke of earlier. You don't want drag. So see, you can see right there, see how it sometimes will get caught under there and you'll be like, oh, and you'll have to just pull it up. Well, this right here helps keep these two sides up around your neck so that you don't have to fuss with that. And I'll show you more of that as I get quilting here. But I just wanted to share with you what my setup was for any of you newbies out there. So I have my quilt all the way pushed up to around the center area where I'm going to start. Then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to grab one of these and I'm going to clip that like so. Take the other one and clip that in there. So that is definitely hanging there. That's not going to go under, you know, the lip of my table, and it's just going to be wonderful. You'll see. For today's design on my husband's beautiful quilt, I am going to do a big meander, I think, because meander is kind of manly and, you know, I don't know. I'm not going to do any swirls or flowers or anything like that. So, you know, maybe I'll add some paisleys in, but I doubt it. I think I'm just going to do an edge-to-edge big meander. So I'm going to start here in the center. And everything is fused nicely. Everything is laying nice and flat. And I'm feeling, too, for that nice and flatness. I'm going a little slower on this quilt only because of the stretchy flannel. So I'm not going to try to, you know, race with myself. So I can see that this is pulling a little bit over this way. So that tells me that I need to get back on track that way because I'm getting too much toward the top here. Remember, I want to go middle to the side. You can see here this gets kind of thick back here in the throat space as I'm going, but these right here totally help, let me tell you. I just can't even explain to you how annoying this is when it gets underneath this lip and I have to constantly, you know, pull it out. It catches me, it drags, it's horrible. So this is the thing that I came up with, I don't know, to fix it. And anyone can make one too. It's really easy. You probably have all the stuff at your house right now, right? Now when you get to this point right here, you can see it's kind of really pulling, and I want to go to the edge here, so I'm just going to unclip. And that leaves, you know, this nice and flat, and we can, you know, get that part done right here. So I'm not too sure if you can see the squiggles there. So this is the center. Where is it? There is the center where I started, and I just took a chunk and went down that way. Now the back, you can really see it. Look how pretty that is. Oh my goodness, that sheen and that softness is just not compared to, I'm telling you, it's the best when you lay with a quilt like this. So yeah, looking good. So now I'm going to go off to the other side, but I have to unclip first and then start in the center and just do the same exact thing that I did. Since I've always had limited space in my sewing room, especially on the cutting table, I typically start with my corners first when trimming up the quilt after I've free motion quilted. That's just the way I've always done it. And I know some people do it differently, but this is how I do it, and it works perfectly on a larger quilt too. This is the first corner that I'm going to trim up. I'm going to take my square ruler first, and I can already tell that, you know, this is pulled a little bit and this is, you know, wonky, sort of wavy, whatever. Now I know, looking on this full side of this quilt right here, that I can come in a little bit as far as, you know, how much I'm going to trim off. I can probably come in as much as like an inch or so, but I don't want to do that if I don't have to. But I know it's there and I can utilize it. And since this dips up that far, I'm going to come in just a bit here, and you can see there I'm trying to line up the square and come in, you know, a little bit anyways. It's okay if it dips a little. I mean, it is a scrappy quilt. It's not that big of a deal. I'm lining up a line on my ruler here with the seam of where the border is. I'm looking at the lines within the quilt, and I'm finding the middle ground area of straightness. Hopefully that makes some sense. I mean, you're not going to be dead on ever. So don't ever think that you are going to be, unless you are, you know, I don't know, but mine never turn out perfect. So I have, you know, as best as I'm going to get here with all of the lines. So I'm going to come in with my cutter, and I'm just going to cut up to where that ruler ends, right there. And then I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to come and cut right there. I need to cut into this somewhere, so I think I'm going to do it right here, because I don't want this hanging, you know, around the corner as I cut. I'm going to go to the corner on the bottom. So this is the bottom right corner, so I'm going to come over here to the bottom left corner. Make sure you spread everything out really good, because you can see how this waves out a little bit here. You know, you want to make sure that you account for everything ahead of time, so that way problems don't, you know, arise on you. So again, I'm going to lay my ruler down, and I'm just squaring up in general on this corner first. And I know I can come in a little bit on the side. I don't know how much though, I didn't check that. Okay. So I'm going to find the best cut here. Now, since this waves out, this is in farther, I'm going to try to come in to this point right here. And you can grab another ruler just to help you out there. If you know you want it to be up to there, you can kind of fudge this ruler to help you here. Things do get wonky after you free motion quilt, that's for sure. So I'm just checking all my lines. This might need to go a little like that. Just shift it, you know, to where you find the medium mid. I hope that makes sense. I don't know, it's so hard to explain. Once you get it to where all of the lines are somewhat even, you're going to come in and do the same thing. You're going to slice up to the corner and to the edge of the ruler there. Right there, so I can get rid of that. Now the other two corners I'm going to do identically to what I'm doing here. But before I cut those other corners like I normally would do, I'm just going to go ahead and show you how to slice all the way down the side, because this one is wonky. You can tell. You can tell that that dips in here, but you know what? It is what it is. Just make sure everything is nice and, you know, flat. Use your hands and just spread. That's a big dip right there, but oh well. I'm going to take my long ruler and I'm going to line it up with what I cut over here. You know, this line right here. Look in here. Now you can see that that has a wave there within the border, so I'm just going to kind of ignore that wave and meet up with this line over here. So if you can follow that, you can see how that dip goes over the area, but you know, whatever. I'm going to slice. Again, spread everything out. This line right here, we're going to line up best we can along there. It may ebb and flow in and out, but you know, whatever. That's what happens when you're working with unstable fabric, and a lot of my pieces were unstable in here, and so it's not going to give you that perfect, you know, straight line. So when you get to this area, so we got this last little bit left. What I'm going to do is line up my ruler on this edge down here and up here. And I'm going to butt that right up against the edge where I cut there, and then right down here too. And then slice. So there are two corners. I'm going to do the other two corners just like I did these two. I wanted to give you a really good look of my compensating presser foot from Juki. Hopefully you can see at this angle right here, there's a chunky piece right here on the edge there. That's what's going to hold our fabric in This presser foot right here will help keep a 1/4 inch all the way down along this edge as we attach the minky. Now you can attach this minky two ways. You can either attach it from the front and then fold over, or you can attach it to the back and then fold over. It's totally up to you. I myself prefer attaching it to the front and then folding over. So when we go to sew the back, we are not going to tuck this back in at all. Minky does not fray at all, so we don't have to worry about it, but we will trim it if it's too long. I'm going to leave a tail of this out, start along the bottom, and so I'm not going to start right from here because I'm going to connect that at the end. So I'm just going to line up my minky right sides to right sides, tuck it under this chunk right here. Or not under the chunk, it's under the presser foot, and the chunk is going to push up right against this ledge. Come up to a 1/4 inch away from this edge right here, away from the corner. So away from this edge where the corner is, you are going to stop at a 1/4 inch away from that. I'm eyeballing it. And it looks okay. So I'm gonna lift my presser foot, turn it so it's a V shape facing me this way. And then I'm going to put my presser foot back down. I'm going to sew diagonally to that corner and right off. And I'm gonna break thread. Hopefully you can see that. I went 1/4 inch and then right off to the corner. You're gonna lay it in front of you like this. Then you're going to take your binding and lift it up and over. And you want your binding to be straight across right here. And it's gonna leave you an angle right here. So you want this to be straight. I have this ruler here on my sewing machine. Back it up so you can see. I can use this ruler right here to make sure that I'm straight. Then I'm going to hold this right here. Push this back so you can see. Sorry. I'm going to hold this right here, and then I'm going to take this and I'm going to flip this back this way. And what I'm looking for here is the edge of the quilt top that I sewed a second ago, and the folded edge of this that I just folded. I want that to be like that, sandwiched, nice. So I want this then to come straight across this way, right here. So this is straight, and then this is folded on top of where I just sewed. I'm going to pinch this and turn my quilt top. There's that folded edge right there and the sewed edge, and there's this edge straight. And I'm going to lift this up. I'm going to set this so my needle is right at the edge. That's where you want to start. You don't want to start inward at all. You want to start at the very edge, the back edge there, the corner edge. Hopefully I didn't mess anything up here. I don't know. I may have. Ay, ay, ay. Okay. And then sew. So you're going to do that all the way around, and I will show you how to miter that corner next. So this is where I started, and this is where I stopped. So I'm going to cut this off like that. And I'm just going to lay this over top to see where I'm at, because I'm going to connect it just like I did connect, you know, the strips together to begin with. It's, you know, easy peasy. We're not doing anything fancy, you know. Well, I know that I can overlap them, you know, about a ½ inch or so. I'm just going to pin the two pieces of minky only together at this point, like so. Lift the quilt top out of the way. Get this tucked under my sewing machine. I didn't give myself very much room, I know. And once I'm close, I'm just going to pinch the fabrics together and take the pin out because it's in my way big time. So I should have taken off this presser foot and put the other one on, but hopefully it'll work still. So I'm just going to come to the very edge of the back one here. Might not work. Might not work with this presser foot. I don't know. It's not ideal. So change your presser foot. Ugh, hope it turns out all right. Okay, so it kind of went a little wonky, but let me see if that's going to work though. Yeah, it'll work. I just need to get the other top stitch in there. So now I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to sew along the edge of this one right here. It's not my neatest work, but okay. I could have done that a lot neater than what I did, but you do better, okay? Don't follow me on that. You do better. So that's together just like it would be if I connected it, you know, with the other strips. So now I can turn it like that and I can finish closing up this quilt. Just like that. Is just flip your quilt top so it's facing up, fold this over, and you can clip or pin or whatever. You want to pull it taut so that there's no like space in between here within this little casing of the quilt binding. And the only way to get that is to kind of pull it, you know, kind of snug there, and then just run it through. Come up close here, and then you're going to fold this down and fold this down. Now you can do this ahead of time. You don't have to do it right at the sewing machine like I'm doing. But you know, I tend to work on the go. So once you get it, you know, the way that you want it here, you're just going to hold it down and come to the end, the corner there, and shift it. Lift up your presser foot and just pivot. So once you get everything sewn down, all your corners and everything, it should look like this on the back. You're going to go through and take your little snips, not these big ones. Don't use your big ones. Use your little snips to go in, your curved snips, and cut all of this excess off. But don't use your big scissors like I'm doing right now. You definitely want to use your little ones because you do not want to put a hole in this brand new quilt that you just made. Oh my word. That would be horrible. So I think I should probably stop with these big scissors because, yeah, that could totally happen in an instant. But you get the idea. Take your curved snips and just go along and just cut off all of the excess. Introducing my husband's Christmas present 2023. Okay, friends, I love this quilt. Let me tell you about this quilt. First off, I thrifted 7 flannel shirts, which totally cut my cost way down on this quilt. I mean, come on. I couldn't tell you what the amount was, but just imagine, you know, a cheap flannel shirt at the Goodwill on half off day. A couple dollars a shirt maybe, I don't even know. So thrifting the shirts freed me up for some expensive minky, and that's what I bought. Probably $50 worth of minky here, I don't know, but yeah. But he's worth it. Typically, a lot of you have questions of why I put flannel in between my quilt sandwich when I have minky and a quilt top. Super easy. Not only does it add a little bit more warmth, it just adds a bit more fluidity to this quilt. When you put it around you, it literally hugs you, like wraps around all your crevices and all your bumps or whatever. It's like getting a big, furry, warm hug. It's not like a traditional quilt where, you know, you put it on you and then there's gaps within, you know, the quilt that's around you. It literally hugs your body. No kidding. After this video goes live, I am going to wash and dry this quilt just like I normally would if it was in, you know, the wash and dry rotation in my house. And then I'm going to wrap it all up and put it underneath the Christmas tree so that my husband has this beautiful nuggy quilt to open on Christmas morning. Maybe I'll let him open it Christmas Eve. I don't know yet. I will post what this quilt looks like on my community page, and I will also post a short around Christmas time after I give him this quilt, if I can get him on video. We'll have to see about that one. So this is what I've done for you. I've handpicked a couple videos. They're on the screen right now. I've handpicked them just for you. All about free motion quilting, the beginning steps, and all the pool noodle stuff. You will gain a ton of information just from those 2 videos alone. Hey, send me some good vibes by hitting the like button. Until next time on the Sewing Channel, take care.